Namaskar and welcome. Today, the world is at crossroads. There is biodiversity conservation on one side, the other side, there is sustainable development. Today, the United Nations has declared this decade as the decade for ecosystem restoration. With this regard, to know about India's stand and contributions in the conservation at grassroots level, we have amidst us an expert and a scholar in the area of biodiversity, the Secretary of National Biodiversity Authority India, Shri J.Justin Mohan ji. Namaskar, sir. Sir is an IFS officer of 1999 batch and has almost a robust experience in the field of biodiversity for over 25 years. Sir, I welcome you, and today we'd like to know about India's strategy at biodiversity conservation at the grassroots level.
Okay. Thank you, Ankita, for the interview, and thank you to all the viewers who are seeing this interview. India, as you know, has been giving a top priority to environment, and ever since India became a member of the Stockholm Conference in 1972, India has taken a lot of proactive measures to protect our environment and also safeguard our biodiversity. A lot of legislations were enacted by the Parliament after 1972. The Wildlife Protection Act 1972, the Water Act 1974, the Air Act in 1981, the Environment Protection Act in 1986 were all legislations aimed at protecting our environment. We also went in for amending our constitution to bring in a new provision, that is a fundamental duty to safeguard our environment, and also a directive principle mandating the government to take effective measures to safeguard our environment. Then you also know that the 73rd and 74th Amendment was aimed at decentralizing our governance. So today we have a local self-government in every local body. India, when it became a party to the Convention on Biological Diversity, which is a United Nations initiative to conserve our biodiversity, since India became a party in 1992 along with 196 countries, as part of its commitment, India also enacted the Biological Diversity Act in 2002, and to implement the act, Government of India established three-type institutional mechanism. One at the national level, which is the National Biodiversity Authority. Then at the state level, we have a State Biodiversity Board. And at the Union Territory level, we have a Union Territory Biodiversity Council, which is on par with the State Biodiversity Board. And at the grassroots level, that is at the local body level, we have the Biodiversity Management Committees. So today we have established 2,77,376 Biodiversity Management Committees in different local bodies at the village level, block level, and at the district level. So the Biodiversity Management Committees are statutory institutions established under the Biological Diversity Act 2002 to actually manage and govern the biodiversity in the jurisdiction of the local body.
Okay. So you mentioned about BMC, that's the Biodiversity Management Committees. So can you brief us about how it is formed and what is the structure about?
Okay. See, the Act, that is the Biological Diversity Act, and also the Biological Diversity Rules 2004 have provisions on how this Biodiversity Management Committee has to be constituted. So every local body at the village level, district level, or the block level, they have been given the powers to constitute a Biodiversity Management Committee. This is just like any other standing committee of a local body. See, in a local body setup, there would be a lot of standing committees, like one may be for education, maybe one standing committee may be for health, like that. Different standing committees based on the requirement are constituted by the concerned local body. Similarly, the local body can also create a Biodiversity Management Committee. As per the Act, every local body shall create a Biodiversity Management Committee. That committee will comprise of a chairman. Along with the chairman, the committee will comprise another 6 members. So out of this committee constituting a chairman and also 6 members, 2 should be women, and one should be from the scheduled caste or scheduled tribe community. So this 7-member body that is constituted by the local body, this committee is declared as the Biodiversity Management Committee of that area. So this committee has been given a lot of powers under the Biological Diversity Act. They have specific functions, they have specific roles, duties and responsibilities to perform to protect and conserve the biological diversity in their jurisdiction.
Okay, sir. Now that you have mentioned about the roles and some functions, can you elaborate on the various roles and the functions that BMC has supposed to do?
Okay. See, the Biodiversity Management Committees, which are vested with powers to conserve the biodiversity in a particular local body, should know what is the biodiversity available in their jurisdiction. So as part of documenting the biological resources in their jurisdiction, the Biodiversity Management Committee will have to collect all the biological resources and associated traditional knowledge which is available in their jurisdiction. So focus should be given on those species which have commercial value and are largely procured by the traders. Because what happens is, as part of conservation, the Biological Diversity Act has provisions wherein which the user of biological resources will have to share a portion of their benefits to the people who provide these resources. These people may be either farmers, or these people may be communities which are living inside forests, tribal communities, indigenous communities who depend on biological resources for their livelihood. So these people either produce, cultivate, propagate or gather biological resources, and as part of their livelihood they hand it over to the traders, who then transfer these biological resources to the companies who require them for producing various products. So at the end of the production, at the end of every financial year, these companies will have to share about 0.5% of their gains to the communities who actually have provided these resources under a mechanism called the ABS mechanism, that is the Access and Benefit Sharing Mechanism. So the funds that are being provided under this mechanism, ABS mechanism, by the corporate entities would be channeled by the National Biodiversity Authority and the State Biodiversity Boards to the Biodiversity Management Committees. So once the ABS amount is received by the committees, Biodiversity Management Committees, they will have to properly plan how to use them. So this is the second role. First role is to first prepare a document called the People's Biodiversity Register, where they collect all the species, details of species that are available in their locality, the name of the species, the botanical name. If they know a particular use for that species, that can also be recorded. And then how much quantity roughly will be available in that locality of that particular species. And if there is any traditional knowledge, that also should be recorded. Why we should record is, tomorrow if there is a company, say for example, they have access to traditional knowledge, say for example COVID. There is a cure for COVID that is available in tribal settlement in a remote village. So some company who is unaware about this rule, or innocently or deliberately they take away this knowledge or a particular resource and start commercializing it, then at National Biodiversity Authority, when we come to find out that there is a violation, then we have to prove that this particular knowledge has come from this particular village. So the People's Biodiversity Register will be a proof
Evidence.
to show, as an evidence, to show that yes, this particular traditional knowledge has been accessed from this particular village. So it is very important for the Biodiversity Management Committees to document whatever knowledge is available. This is one. And also, whenever the access and benefit sharing mechanism kicks on, when funds start flowing into the local biodiversity fund, which is managed by the BMC, then they should actually know how to utilize this fund. So the BMCs have been given powers to utilize the funds for conserving a particular species for which they are receiving the ABS amount, or for conserving any other species which they feel has commercial value and they are being procured by the traders from that village. They can also use it for any socio-economic development of that village. For example, a village may require a repairing of a road, or they may require a street light, a solar lamp, or they may be wanting to furnish a local school, a tribal school, or they may want to provide some bedding to a primary health center, or they may want to, as part of sanitation, they may want to construct some few public toilets. So whatever socio-economic requirement is required in a particular village, the BMC can utilize this ABS amount to meet the requirement. Sometimes what happens is there may not be an ongoing rural development scheme in a particular village. So in such situations, the ABS amount becomes handy because the BMC can use that amount for a particular requirement of that village. So this is number 2. Number 3 is the BMC is also required to conserve the biodiversity in their local body. Apart from areas that are protected under the forest department, there must be a lot of areas outside the forest that would be rich in biodiversity. So under section 37 of the Biological Diversity Act, such areas can be notified as biodiversity heritage sites. So today in India, we have just started notifying biodiversity heritage sites under section 37, and we have about 33 such sites that have been notified by 13 state governments. So the BMC should take a lead to identify some areas, even it can be 1 acre or maybe less than an acre, but if they feel that a particular area which is under their jurisdiction has a lot of biodiversity, it may be say medicinal plants, or it may be having a lot of bird population, any type of biodiversity which they feel that has to be protected, because that may be giving a lot of ecosystem services. So such areas can be protected, and then with the recommendation of the BMC, that is the Biodiversity Management Committee, the state government can notify them as biodiversity heritage site, and then the BMC is responsible to manage these sites using the ABS amount that is being collected by them, either from the National Biodiversity Authority or from the state biodiversity boards. Then the BMC is also vested with the responsibility to take care of the eco-restoration measures that is required in a particular village. The same may be renovation of a pond that may be infested with some invasive weeds, or they may be required to remove some invasive alien species that is actually affecting the local biodiversity. So any type of eco-restoration which a village requires, that is also to be done by the Biodiversity Management Committee. So they have a vast jurisdiction so far as the biodiversity management is concerned in their locality, in their jurisdiction. That is why we feel that BMC has to be most active if we want to conserve our biodiversity, because for the country, they are the real ambassadors for biodiversity conservation. And to manage these, they have to source funds from different sources, and with the funds which they are getting, they will be managing the biodiversity in their particular jurisdiction.
So you have correctly noted that they are the ambassadors, and as you also said, like a lot of activities, be it preparing the PBR or documenting this knowledge or ecosystem restoration services. All this requires a lot of manpower, and when manpower comes into picture, there has to be some funds to support it. So what are the different ways BMC can have the funds to take ongoing activities?
Okay, so there are 4 ways from which BMCs can source funds. One is the state government themselves provide funds to various local bodies. Since the Biodiversity Management Committee is part of the local body, it does not function separate as a separate entity. They are very much part of the local body because they are constituted by the local body. They work as another standing committee only of the Panchayat. So whatever funds that come to the local body can spare some funds for this committee, BMC. This is one source by which the BMC can receive funds. Then the 15th Finance Commission of the Government of India has authorized the Panchayat Raj departments across all the states to utilize the funds earmarked under the 15th Finance Commission for strengthening the Biodiversity Management Committee and for preparing the People's Biodiversity Register. So the BMCs can source these funds from the 15th Finance Commission for strengthening their activities and also for preparing the People's Biodiversity Registers. Also, the ABS money that is being collected by the National Biodiversity Authority and also the state biodiversity boards, that has to invariably go to the Biodiversity Management Committees. So for which the BMC will have to start a fund, local biodiversity fund. So they have to open an account in the nearest bank called the local biodiversity fund, and then whatever ABS amount comes from the National Biodiversity Authority or from the state biodiversity board, so this amount has to go into the local biodiversity fund. Then there is another source by which the BMCs can procure funds, that is by levying fees. Under section 41(3) of the Biological Diversity Act, the BMCs have been vested with the powers to levy a fees every time when a biological resource moves out of the village. So the BMC can decide how much amount of bioresources are moving outside their jurisdiction, for which the first step is the BMCs will have to ensure that all the traders who are actually procuring the biological resource from their jurisdiction are registered with the State Biodiversity Board, because the traders are also covered under the ABS mechanism. The traders will have to pay the benefit sharing on the procurement price of the raw material. So every time a trader buys a raw material from a village, he has to sign an agreement with the board and he has to pay between 1 to 3% of the purchase price of the raw material. So once the BMCs ensure that all the traders, it may be government entities or private traders, so they will have to register themselves with the SBB, State Biodiversity Board, and once the BMCs ensure that they have got the prior approval from the board and they are procuring these biological resources with the authority, then they can ensure that this amount, whenever they are leaving their jurisdiction, a levy can be imposed on the trader for the resources under section 41(3) of the Biological Diversity Act. So this is the fourth source by which they can source funds for their activities. Several states have also used the CAMPA funds, the compensatory afforestation funds, that are being provided by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change for compensatory afforestation activities to various state governments. There is a committee that is chaired by the Chief Secretary of the state government. So they can also decide that a portion of that fund, CAMPA fund, can also be utilized for strengthening the BMCs for various conservation activities. They can be used for preparation of PBRs, updating the existing PBRs, and also to undertake various conservation activities to conserve the species which are having commercial value, that are being procured by the traders and companies from the villages. So these are the various means by which the BMCs can actually source funds.
So you have been part of several deliberations where you have represented India on international platforms as well as national platforms. So what is your message to the grassroots level managers, the BMCs, and how they can take forward this conservation activities, and what is your message to them for being the ambassadors of this particular activity?
See, today, since India has gone ahead with biodiversity conservation through the grassroots mechanism. So, today, as I told you earlier, we are having 277,376 biodiversity management committees which have been established by their local bodies. So, there should be a bottom-up approach. Once they become active, automatically biodiversity conservation at the local body level will be more streamlined and it will be more effective. So for which, as I told you earlier, the BMCs will have to ensure that all the bioresources in their locality are documented. Since the members of the BMCs are generally the ward councillors, they can establish a technical support group to prepare the People's Biodiversity Register. We call it as TSG, Technical Support Group. So they can actually recruit persons having technical knowledge, maybe a botany teacher or a zoology teacher or a microbiology teacher or an agriculture teacher who are actually working in a neighboring school or a college. Maybe there may be Vaids and Hakims in that area who are practicing local medicine with indigenous knowledge. So these are the people who know the details of the resources that are being procured by the traders. So once the technical support group is established, and with the technical support group, the biodiversity registers which have been prepared can be updated, because that is a dynamic document. You keep on updating as and when you know that a particular resource has got a commercial value. So once that process is over, the BMC also has to undertake a micro level micromanagement of the resources available. So say for example, a particular medicinal plant has lot of commercial value. So it is in the interest of the village that if the soil and climate suits that particular medicinal plant, the BMC can take the lead and inform the local body that here is a medicinal plant which is getting lot of ABS money from the commercial entities like Ayush, for example, Ayush industry. So why not our farmers going for large scale cultivation of this particular medicinal plant? So for which they have to plan their activities. So the micro level planning has to be undertaken. There should be a participatory rural appraisal. They have to undertake a rural appraisal where the villagers are also involved, where they will know that these are the species that are actually being commercially exploited by the traders or directly by the companies. Today what happens, lot of companies are engaged in contract farming. Companies directly go to the farms and they have a contract agreement with the farmers. So now once the BMCs come to know that companies are directly engaged in contract farming, the companies can know that these are the species which are actually required for the corporates. So they can go in for advocating of a large scale mass multiplication of that particular species. So in that way, the farmers of that village will also get benefited. So it is also a win-win situation because the companies also require raw material. See, today for India, Ayush industry has become a face of our country. So if Ayush industry has to grow, we need more raw material. So once the BMCs become active, they will take up the mission to enlarge or going for large scale cultivation of medicinal plants, which are actually required by the companies, Ayush companies. So similarly cosmetic companies, similarly seed companies, similarly various pharmaceutical companies, drug manufacturers. So whichever species has commercial value, the BMCs should identify them and actually through the panchayat, they should advocate for large scale cultivation. And in the forest, if some species are coming from the wild, they should also send the message to the tribal people that here is a species for which you are getting ABS amount. and you should ensure that this particular species in the village, in the forest areas, do not get extinct. You should not go in for large scale extraction of that particular species. So a lot of awareness programs also have to be taken up by the BMCs. So BMCs have been vested with variety of roles, and this awareness creation on the part of BMCs will also play a major role to actually increase the income of both the farmers and also the tribal communities for whom the biodiversity is actually a source of livelihood. So from NBA, we have recently gone in for actually bringing in a logo for ABS companies. So if any company becomes ABS compliant, they can proudly actually put their logo that they are ABS compliant. It gives more visibility for their products both inside India and also outside India. So today, since 196 countries are parties to the Convention on Biological Diversity, it is only a matter of time when all the countries who are now parties to the convention will insist that your product should have the ABS logo. So India, being a leader in ABS mechanism, we have gone ahead, and then with the help of the QCI, Quality Control of India, we have designed a logo which can be used by the corporates who have actually taken prior approval from the National Biodiversity Authority to proudly actually portray it in their products, and they can proudly claim that they are ABS compliant. So from NBA, we are doing whatever possible. We have been distributing a lot of ABS funds to various biodiversity management committees. Till date, we have supported about 10,500 BMCs with the ABS funds, and it is only a matter of time when all the BMCs would be getting funds. But today, whatever we have collected, it is all from top-down approach. But more and more funds can be collected if the BMCs become more proactive, and if they can ensure that the resources which are going outside their village are going with the prior approval of either the National Biodiversity Authority or the state biodiversity boards, then obviously the ABS funds that is going to come from various user agencies would be plowed back to these BMCs for undertaking various biodiversity conservation activities.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much for sharing so much of insightful information with us, and thank you again for the valuable time you shared with us. And I hope this series will make a lot of awareness about the biodiversity management committees as well as the conservation at grassroots level. Thank you.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Thank you.